Hello, my name is Mackenzie Chappell, and I decided to do my history project over the orphan train movement. Throughout this presentation, you will learn about what the orphan trains were, what they did, why they did it, and what the result of the orphan trains were. In 1853, the Child's Aid Society was founded by Charles Loring Brace to help out the abundant amount of abandoned children in New York City. In 1854, the Children's Aid Society started the orphan train movement. This was to help relocate children who were orphaned, abandoned, or homeless from the extremely crowded cities on the East Coast to foster homes and adoptive families in the Midwest. Over 250,000 children had been relocated, but not everyone got the happy ending out in a home in the Midwest, but a majority of them did. The train movement ended in 1929, but has become the start of the American foster care system and the child protection and health care and welfare system. The orphan trains were the trains that brought orphaned, abandoned, or homeless children from the East Coast to rural communities in the Midwest in hopes of providing them with better lives. The movement started as a controversial social experiment, which now is recognized as the beginning of the foster care system. This movement placed more than 250,000 children between 1854 and 1929. Once the children were placed in the homes of families on farms, the children were expected to work on the farms. The adoptive families were expected to treat them as if they were their own family and raise them as if they were their own. Today we know this program as the form of adoption, but it wasn't always known as that back then. This was the early form of foster care that is now known as placing out. This didn't require the families to legally adopt the children, they just took them in. In the end, the movement is what paved the way for the child welfare programs such as child labor laws, adoption, and establishment of foster care services. Charles Loring Brace is the founder of the Child's Aid Society of New York City. This foundation's purpose was to ease the abundant amount of abandoned children in New York City. The orphanages that were in the city at the time lacked resources, expertise, and incentive that was needed to turn orphan children into self-sufficient adults, according to Charles. The society started off with orphan children, with giving the children the basic academic and religious trainings that they needed to attempt to be able to find stable and safe jobs. With the numbers rapidly growing, this is when Brace came up with the idea of sending children out west to be put up for adoption and help on farms. The Midwest folks were very welcoming of the children, especially for the extra help on their farms. Brace wrote, "The best of all asylums for the outcast child is the farmer's home. The great duty is to get these children of unhappy fortune utterly out of their surroundings and to send them away to some kind of Christian homes in the country." The main thing the orphan train did was take orphaned, abandoned, and homeless children from the East Coast to the Midwest to help on recently settled farms, as well as a chance for better lives. Most children have the chance of a better life, but that is not always 100%. The first train arrived in southwestern Michigan with 45 children on October 1st, 1854. By the end of the first week, 37 of the 45 found families locally. The last 8 were put back on the train and sent to some families in Iowa City, Iowa. In January 1855, there were 2 more groups of children who were sent to Pennsylvania. The workers of the Children's Aid Society were hoping the children would be adopted and put in the fields. As stated many times before, the Children's Aid Society is the reason these children had this opportunity for better lives. They wanted to give the rising number of children who didn't have families a chance at becoming self-sustainable adults. The Children's Aid Society also wanted to help ease the amount of these children who were coming to them as well. This is when Charles Brace came up with the idea of sending these children out west to help on farms and find families. With this idea, it helped the substantial amount of orphaned and abandoned children be dispersed around the country instead of all in one city. This also gave them all second chances. It doesn't always have to be a happy ending, but for most of it, it was. Around 1920, the movement started to decline. This was caused by the economy starting to boom in the cities, so the cities were able to develop their own resources for taking care of the children. Another thing that started because of this movement was that states were beginning to enact laws that strictly regulated or banned the interstate transportation of children for the sole purpose of adoption. Of all the states, Michigan was the first. Then in 1899, Indiana, Illinois, and Minnesota followed by enacting their own similar laws. Then in 1904, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Missouri, North Dakota, Ohio, and South Dakota passed similar laws. The orphan train movement was the biggest movement that paved the way for the federal child protection and welfare laws, school lunch programs, and child health care programs. This movement themselves believed they had done well with monitoring and overall with the program. 87% of the children who were on the trains did well, which means that they became successful adults, while the other 13 either returned to New York, died, or got arrested. 2 of the boys who rode the orphan train had become governors, one of North Dakota and the other of an Alaskan territory. After the movement, the amount of children who were arrested for petty theft and vagrancy drastically declined in New York City. And these are my sources. Thank you for watching my presentation.